Hello, it's episode 103 of Dots, Lines, and Destinations. It's Thursday, February 18th, 2016. I'm joined by Seth Miller today, and our dot, line, and destination are as follows. The dot is Long Beach, the line is Houston, Luanda, and the destination is Cuba this week. It's going to be an interesting week, isn't it, Seth?
It's always an interesting week. Always.
Well, you sound like before this show, before we started recording today, you sounded like you had an interesting phone conversation about a ticket. So,
yeah, you want me to do that one?
Let's just talk about that for a minute.
I got a very nice deal on a ticket from Bangkok to the United States, or to Montreal, I should say, to Canada, and debatable. Basically, I tried to book it through the airline. The airline's website wouldn't take payment, so I booked it through Expedia. Mm-hmm. And then a week later, the airline's like, God, we have a duplicate reservation here. Let's just cancel it all. And canceled my ticket.
Why? Which one in particular did they cancel? The one that you had booked through Expedia?
Yeah, the one that I'd actually paid for.
Yeah.
So now I have no ticket. And so I called. I was like, "Gosh, what happened?" And the first agent's like, "Oh, you have to call Qatar. Call the airline." It was Qatar Airways. So I called the airline. They're like, that Expedia has to call us. I've been going round and round and round. Basically, at the end of the day, they're telling Expedia we're not going to honor the ticket. We don't want to reinstate it. And so I'll give Expedia credit. They were willing to buy me a new ticket home, but only in economy, even though I paid for business class, because, it was just too cheap a ticket. And they weren't willing to, they were going to eat the cost of the fare difference, but only to a certain amount, and apparently not up to business class. Mm-hmm. So the agent, I was on the phone for 3.5 hours more or less today on hold at various points in time with people at Expedia. So not the best use of my afternoon, but we're going to see. I imagine I won't get anywhere, mm-hmm. but I'm going to give them a little bit of time to present some options to me and then make a decision. Yeah,
I find the whole thing interesting that, we're just going to unilaterally cancel the one that was paid for.
Well, I think they probably canceled both, but, one was paid for. So
yeah, and so your credit card wouldn't go through on Qatar's website.
Correct.
Interesting. Okay, that's always fun. It's a great way to spend a Monday afternoon.
Yeah, it was nice.
So let's talk about this dot, Long Beach. The airport authority, which is it's one of the few slot controlled airports in the United States, not just slot controlled, capacity controlled. Excuse me. And they had 41 slots open, and they just opened 9 more. And Southwest was awarded a total of 4 of those 9 slots. JetBlue got 3, Delta got 2.
Yeah.
What do you think of this? Long Beach it's convenient if you're going to the south side of Los Angeles, that's for sure.
If you say so. I've only ever used it when I'm going to, Long Beach, or connecting through on JetBlue and going elsewhere. It's interesting because JetBlue, has used it as a hub on the West Coast for basically forever, mm-hmm. But is now, seriously upping its game at San Francisco and LAX. So not using it for that traffic anymore, but still sort of routes people through it. They do like a Fort Lauderdale flight, I think, that they can do onward connections to the West Coast and some options like that. But JetBlue has more slots than it uses.
Yeah.
So bidding for more, I feel like, JetBlue has talked at various points in time about trying international service, trying to get FIS facility put in so they can go down to Mexico from there. Mm-hmm. Or possibly with the NEOs coming on board soon, trying to go to Hawaii from there.
That would be an interesting place.
Yeah, both would be interesting options, but I feel like in some ways JetBlue is sort of basically babysitting those slots, hoping something better comes along.
Yeah, it's almost like they don't know what to do with them. Because for me in Portland, you can go Portland, Long Beach, East Coast, or other places, or Portland to the East Coast. That's really your only option, Portland, JFK.
Right.
Which is it's an interesting conundrum because for me it'd be great if they had Mint service, connecting just like United does, Delta does, to San Francisco or LA. And I've complained about that to you before.
Sure.
It makes it useless for me, but it's interesting to me because I could see Long Beach being a very convenient place for me to go to connect to, say, Mexico or somewhere if there was no nonstop available on, say, Alaska or something.
Yeah, and I think that'll be interesting. They got 4 slot pairs for Southwest?
Southwest did, yeah.
They already fly to the other 4 LA area airports, so I feel like this is sort of filling in the gaps in some ways. Mm-hmm. But can you imagine them doing anything other than Houston or Dallas with these?
No, and see, that's what I was going to ask you. I could see them doing maybe Phoenix, just because of all the connecting traffic that Southwest has through Phoenix.
Okay.
But definitely Dallas or Houston as the other one. Maybe,
Yeah,
maybe Midway.
I guess then the question becomes, do you do 1X daily to 4 hubs?
Yeah.
Or do you go all in and say this is now a business route and we're going to take commuters back and forth and actually, feed a hub operation?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure it's a business. Is it really a business destination? I've always seen it as a leisure market. I've seen Long Beach itself as a leisure market for forever.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to be fair, the few times I've stopped there has been for conferences. So it was business when I went, but it was also airline related. So
yeah. No, that makes sense.
And they have that convention center. It's a nice space.
They do. I've been to Long Beach a few times for work. I can't remember if I actually flew into Long Beach Airport, though. I was going to refineries, and I stayed by the water, and it's really cool. I mean, the conference, like you said, the conference center is like right there, and it's convenient. And what is that ship that's right there? The
Queen Mary, Elizabeth?
The Queen Mary or Queen Elizabeth. Yeah, you can see
it's
it.
It's a queen.
Yeah. So I don't know. And what do you think Delta's going to do? Because they already have some slots as well.
Yeah, they fly Salt Lake right now, I think, and that's it.
Yeah, and I can't see them doing West Coast stuff with it. So maybe an Atlanta flight?
Or just upping frequencies to Salt Lake.
Yeah, that could be it, too. Because they're probably doing like twice a day or something to Salt Lake.
Yeah.
So
Seattle?
To feed the Asia. I mean, it would help them in the Asia space.
I could sort of see that.
Yeah.
Alaska flies it, I think, on a Q400 also, maybe.
Do they?
Do they have service there? I thought they did.
I don't know.
Maybe not.
They fly to every other dirt strip in California.
Yeah.
We just lost some California listeners.
There's a number of very nice airports in California as well.
Santa Rosa, I mean, there's a lot of.
Santa Rosa is more like a dirt strip. That was pretty small.
Yeah, but I mean, of Q400 destinations out of Seattle and Portland, they fly to a lot of places in California, which is surprising. So, I thought it was an interesting slot award. I think was it JetBlue applied for all of them.
I think Delta did too, or Southwest did too.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that JetBlue did, since they don't use all the ones they have now. It's definitely like it came across as a play for holding on to them, hoarding them, like you said.
Yeah. Well, if Alaska does have Long Beach operations, they're not to Seattle, so probably not.
Yeah, and that would be where they would go. I don't think they would go to Portland. So, the line is Houston-Luanda on TAAG in particular. I was reading a press release by TAAG a few weeks ago, and the press release in the bottom of it, the last line stated, we still look forward to flying Houston-Luanda in 2016. And I kind of did a double take because that's the most random news I've read on the internet in a long time.
That's a bold statement.
It is. I mean, it's a very for me, it was just surprising because I didn't think TAAG was allowed to fly to the United States at all. Am I misplaced in my...
I don't know, is Angola a tier 2 country or whatever?
I thought TAAG was like a forbidden carrier. Do
they fly to Europe now?
They do now. I mean, they fly to... we saw them at Porto and in Lisbon.
Is that a TAAG flight?
Yeah. They have two.
Let me phrase that. Is it a fifth, or not a fifth freedom? Is it a TAAG-on flight operated by TAAG?
No. They operate a nonstop to Porto and a nonstop to Lisbon.
From Luanda.
From Luanda, yeah.
And I know they fly across to Brazil as well. That's some batshit crazy lines going on. And I've confirmed Alaska does not fly to Long Beach, so sorry for that.
Well, our producer's not around, so.
Yeah, I'm self-producing. It's challenging.
Yeah, the last line, the exact wording is, the launch of flights to Houston Intercontinental in the United States is also in the cards. It says on the cards, but I'm thinking it's
sure.
Bad translation.
Well, that would be interesting.
Yeah, because I think people forget that there's a charter that is run by World Airways between Houston and Luanda for the oil traffic. And so a commercial carrier starting up that route is really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Just with the price of oil and everything, it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, I guess the question is, does it make more sense because they can afford to fly it?
Yeah.
Versus not making any sense because none of the oil and gas people are going to take it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Right? I mean, it's, win some, lose some. Yeah, 7,600 miles.
Well,
it's a long flight.
And they said, so what's going on with TAAG right now is that they signed a management concession agreement with Emirates late last year, so late 2015. And under the agreement, TAAG's 9-member management board, Emirates will appoint the CEO and 4 executive directors.
So Emirates gets to stack the board.
Yeah, and the Angolan government gets to appoint a deputy CEO and some non-executive directors. So Emirates has already said, we want to set a goal for the carrier to boost annual revenue from the current $700 million US to $2.3 billion by 2019. Oh yeah, easy.
Just triplet in 4 years in an era of record low,
Yeah, and this is after posting a loss last year of $99 million. So it's a weird play to me. It's weird to me that all these Middle East carriers kind of have their fingers in other carriers around the world.
They're running out of people to piss off in America.
Yeah, I guess so. With Anderson retiring,
Yeah.
But I find it interesting that Emirates picks TAG of all places, or of all airlines. Do they see potential here? I mean, I guess maybe they're looking 10, 11 years down the road when Angolan oil will be worth, a lot more, and the market will be bigger. I don't know.
You got me, man. I got nothing.
Hey, I'm running a professional show here this week, and I came with hard-hitting questions for you.
Yes, and you can tell how well that's working.
Yeah, and it sounds like they're going to expand to Paris and London, Heathrow, soon as well.
Heathrow, interesting. Didn't that Oman Air? Someone just paid $75 million for a slot pair at Heathrow.
Yeah, I think it was Oman Air, actually. I think you're right.
Yeah, I saw that scroll by my feed earlier today. I didn't realize just how close Luanda is to Brazil.
How far apart are they by, like?
Brasilia to Luanda is 4,100 miles.
Wow.
And I imagine Rio is closer.
So by doing that, let's just look. I'm looking at Great Circle Mapper right now.
Yeah.
I wanted to see, like, compared to like European destinations from the U.S. What's that like?
Yeah, 3,900 miles to Rio. So
that's Chicago to London, basically. Chicago to London is 3,953.
Yeah, this is 3,856. So, yeah, I mean, that you can do with a plane that just goes out and back all the time.
Yep.
That's an easy turn.
Yep. How far is Luanda to, let me look at this real quick. Luanda to Lisbon. Because it was interesting. We saw an A330 there, which I didn't even know they had.
3,600, 3,579.
Yeah.
The same thing.
Yeah. I mean, they are kind of centrally located when you think of it from South America, Europe, and Middle East traffic. It is an interesting position.
Yeah, they're a little west for Middle East, I'd say.
Yeah, since Emirates can overfly.
No one actually goes to the Middle East.
Yeah, they're connecting. Yeah.
They're all connecting traffic. So I mean, you can pick up a lot of Western Africa and Southern Africa and connect them to other points in Africa or some cities in Europe. But most of those people also have access to Emirates.
Yeah.
And Emirates has gone beyond the main destinations in Europe and is well into its second tier operations and is arguably playing with some third tier cities.
Yeah, and so I wonder what the play is then with TAG. I mean,
if they only lost $99 million last year, it means they're still able to generate a decent amount of revenue.
Mm-hmm.
People are buying, people are flying. I don't know what the whole market is, but
I wonder if it's all based on African traffic within the African continent.
Yeah, in that context, it's a relatively good location.
Yeah, because they do have some 737-200s, which is interesting, and some 737-700s.
All right.
So, anyway, I thought that was fun. I thought that was a fun thing to talk about.
That's a hell of a line.
Yeah, a lot of people, and it's funny because you can't get that World Airways charter flight unless it's purchased via. There's a conglomerate of oil companies. It has to be purchased through that conglomerate. So you can't get that line unless you work for one of the oil companies. So having TAG there, not saying I want to fly them anytime soon, at least gives you the option.
If Luanda's on your short list.
And then lastly, the destination for this week, and then we have some side stories to talk about, is Cuba. And we've talked about Cuba before, but as this show airs on Thursday, Tuesday will be the date when airlines file for rights to fly to Cuba.
Yeah, the access to the slots is opening up. I think the official signing of the agreement, which was, I guess they came to an agreement late last year, but it was, agreement in principle, and then the Americans came home and talked about it for a little while. Now they're going back, and there's a party in Havana to sign the official paperwork. And then U.S. Airlines will put in for route authorities. It's slot limited still, so it's like 20 operations to Havana and then 10 each to 9 other cities or something like that.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was 9 other cities.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty broad set of flights are opening up.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about, and obviously I think Havana everybody's going to bid for.
Mm-hmm.
And some airlines will do so from multiple destinations or multiple gateways in the U.S. What I'm really intrigued by is what the other cities will see in terms of demand.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at 6 or 7 airlines that could conceivably fly there, there's the big 4, JetBlue, Sun Country, Alaska's too far away.
Yep.
They're not going to. I doubt they'll piggyback onward. Who else? Spirit.
Allegiant.
Allegiant probably will. Virgin America probably won't. So you're up to 7 now, I think.
Will Cubana be allowed to fly to the United States?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think it counts against that set of slots.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd be a little surprised if they could.
I mean, because as soon as they say they're going to put an IL-96 to Miami, I am there.
That's a nice ride. And if by nice you mean like batshit crazy Bizarro World.
I'm okay with Bizarro World.
Yeah.
I think so. For me, I think there's some. We've talked about this before, but I think like Miami, Houston, the New York City area. I could see Atlanta having flights to Havana for sure.
Delta already loaded one into their schedule at one point.
Yeah, we talked about that. I remember we mentioned it, and we were all confused. Like, okay, well, that's really presumptuous, but okay.
Yeah.
But I could see like Houston, Miami, and even the New York City area having some service to the tertiary cities. Maybe even DFW. And Atlanta, maybe. It all depends on what Delta thinks they can do down there. I think Miami makes a lot of sense because of the population and the family ties and just the ties with Cuba in general. Houston because of onward westward traffic. DFW for the same reason. Do you think Atlanta would see the same thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Delta will flow tons of people through Atlanta.
Yeah.
For that. It's 20 flights daily to Havana and 10 each to 9 other international airports.
Wow.
And so I just can't imagine how 110 planes are going to fill up daily.
So do you think we're looking at like 3x service a day or something to some of these, or 3x a week?
I think the 20 to Havana, people, the airlines will try to fill that very quickly. I just wonder about some of the other beach destinations in smaller towns, especially considering this still doesn't change the rule about who's allowed to travel.
Oh, yeah. So this isn't like, we're opening up the border now, everyone can go. It's
right. You still have to, it's self-certified, but you still have to certify as being part of a person-to-person or musical or school or educational group or something like that, a religious mission.
Yeah.
And I imagine that will also change relatively soon. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens in November also with changing administrations. But it'll be interesting to see how that works out in terms of who is allowed to fly and what the airlines are able to do. I feel like in some ways the airlines are going to take losses on this, or are willing to take losses on this to sort of stage a land grab.
Mm-hmm. Get their foot in the door first.
Yeah, but I don't know how long that'll last.
Do you think that JetBlue, I'm thinking of JetBlue and Southwest in particular, and maybe Spirit, out of Florida, running some of the other cities down there? So I'm thinking of Tampa, Orlando. Do you think that they would do something like that?
Yeah, JetBlue's got hub operations, or focus cities they call them, in Orlando and Fort Lauderdale. So
okay.
Those are no-brainers for them to run flights. And they've been running flights twice a week as charter service from JFK. They saw this coming and basically started operations so they could get the kinks ironed out before it was commercial service.
Yep.
Which makes sense, obviously. They're definitely going to go at it, but it'll be interesting to see. I don't know that Tampa would necessarily have the draw. Maybe Southwest does that. Mm-hmm. Even Southwest is sort of drawing back into more of a hub and spoke model lately.
Yeah, I could see them doing like Hobby to compete with United.
Yeah. Allegiant has a pseudo hub at Sanford in Orlando.
That's true. That would make sense.
So they could also make a play there.
I was playing with the route maps, just with Great Circle Mapper, putting in a bunch of different destinations, and I was looking. So L.A. Havana is 2,300 miles, and that's the only West Coast destination I could see someone running. I could see American doing that. American,
I think, operates it today as a charter service.
Okay.
Continental did back in the day.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like a decade ago, well before the merger. Continental, right? Part of the thing about charter services, it comes based on whoever's willing to pay, sort of commit to the charter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's on the operator to sell enough seats to make up the money.
Yep.
So in that sense, minimal risk to Continental at the time or American running that, but to do a commercial service, there's a greater risk because if no one shows up, you actually have to eat the cost.
Yeah, yeah. So I think LA makes sense for American.
Yeah,
but I don't know if anywhere else west makes much sense. I can't see Denver. Maybe Chicago. I could see Spirit, Southwest, kind of duking it out. Well, can Southwest do Midway? Can they do international flights out of Midway? I don't think they can. Actually,
does it have an FIS?
I'm not sure. Need to look that up.
If you look at 1,000-mile radius out of Havana, so that's a 2.5-hour flight.
Yeah.
includes New Orleans, all of Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, and into Tennessee. Nashville would be interesting. Southwest has a pseudo hub operation at Nashville.
Yeah, and I could see some of the airlines doing some of these one-off services like we see to Cancun and Cozumel for spring break.
Yeah. Well, the Cancun stuff isn't even just spring break. It's, year-round, once weekly kind of Saturday service. But yeah.
I could see them doing that kind of thing for places up and down the East Coast.
Yeah, but where do you get? I mean, you got to commit to slots.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know. It's a very. I could see why the airlines are trying to get in on it now because they don't really know what they want to do yet. I mean, it's just like Long Beach. They don't know what they want to do with it yet, but they want to make sure that they're there.
Yeah, it's they've got to be there. I feel like, but there's a whole lot of challenges just in operating there, and a whole lot of challenges in figuring out how many people you're going to be able to carry. And like at this point, I can't imagine there's going to be many Cuba originating passengers just from a price perspective.
Yeah. Can they afford to come?
Can they afford to fly?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
yeah.
I guess if it's VFR traffic, it's going to be people who can have family in the U.S. who've defected or just who lived here over the years and are now flying to visit them. So maybe the American side people are paying for it. I don't know.
Yeah. And Midway does have a FIS facility.
Okay. So, yeah.
It's not. It doesn't look like it's very used, but it does have one according to their financials. Okay. So I think it'll be something to watch, and I'll be interested to see who applies for what come Tuesday. And I'm sure in the next show we could bring that up, talk about who applied for what. Was that public knowledge? As soon as they file for it, we'll know.
I don't think so. I think. Well, I mean, if they issue a release, then yes. Mm-hmm. But I think we probably don't know until the close of the filing period.
Oh, okay.
And
so that people can't say
DOT gets to order. Yeah, and then the DOT actually gets to allocate them and issue them. It's sort of like the Haneda thing, right? Like everybody's applied, and then the slots got dropped and tossed around and whatever. But
yep, makes sense.
What's also interesting to me is right now the Havana airport is 3 separate airports. There's the international terminal, the domestic terminal, and the U.S. terminal.
Why is the U.S. terminal separate?
Because it's only charter operations. It's not commercial service.
Gotcha.
And it's basically, I mean, from the out, I haven't been inside it, but it basically looks like a bus station style. It's you wait in a big room, you walk across the tarmac to the plane, you get on board, and you fly out. So it's going to be interesting to see if they fix that up at all, or if that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I was seeing they have Terminal 3, but I don't see any other terminals in the map. And
no, they aren't. So if you look, and if you look at a satellite view, Terminal 3 is the main international facility. Due east of that, across the runway, is the domestic terminal, and there's you can sort of see another sort of built-up space on the far right, I guess east edge of the airport.
Yep.
And then just back across the runway from that is the U.S. portion. There's a separate taxiway, an apron. Mm-hmm. That's where the U.S. terminal is.
And so do you just go into one of those facilities there and they clear you there? Is that where that happens? Okay. Interesting. In kind of random news, Air Canada said it's going to end service to JFK. This is going to come April 3rd.
I think that JFK just doesn't work for Star Alliance. It must be what it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, United left. Air Canada's leaving. I figure Lufthansa's going to pull out next.
You think so?
No.
Well,
thanks,
I think what's interesting, they're going to focus. What they've said is they're going to focus on LaGuardia and JFK, or LaGuardia and Newark, excuse me.
Sure.
And they're going to operate 240 round trip flights between LaGuardia and Newark and Toronto, Montreal, Calgary, and Vancouver. That's a very interesting take.
That's weekly?
240 round trip flights weekly.
Okay.
I find Calgary to be an interesting.
That service already exists, though, right?
Does it exist to? Well, it existed to Newark, right? It didn't.
Right.
It didn't exist to JFK, I don't think.
No.
And
I feel like they're not. I don't think they're going to. Are they adding anything, or they're just reiterating the fact that they still have all those flights?
Well, I wonder if they're going to go mainline to LaGuardia and Newark or something. But with 240 flights a week, I just can't see that happening.
No, I mean, every now and then there is a mainline substitution, but hell, every now and then they bring a 767 in to clear up backlogs when they cancel a bunch of flights. That's awesome.
I take pictures of that, which I think is it's fun to watch it land.
Yeah, they use all the LaGuardia space. But no, I think that this is basically giving up a couple, 3 or 4 maybe round trip daily flights on a prop that just doesn't feed well into the international flow anymore.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that makes sense to me. Where were they operating out of at JFK?
I think someone said T7.
Okay. And so it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, if you have European connections, I'm just trying to think like what was the point of the JFK operation to begin with? Was it just to catch some afternoon traffic from New York City? What was the goal there? Because the LaGuardia is clearly easy to get to from Manhattan.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it had to be for feeding onward long-haul flights from Montreal or Toronto.
Yeah.
I got some good deals on them over the years. I had some great cheap tickets, so there's that.
Well, in Newark being slot controlled, it's not like they can add flights there, right? Unless they have slots that they're just not using. But I didn't think they had any.
Yeah, I really don't think they're adding anything. I honestly think that it's just reminding everybody that they still fly to New York City a lot. It's sort of United's thing, like, oh, we still fly to New York a lot. In Newark and LaGuardia, we're just dropping JFK.
Yeah, I wonder. We know Swiss flies to Newark, Zurich now,
right?
But they fly also JFK Zurich and JFK Geneva.
Yeah.
Do you think that Swiss could move those flights over to Newark, or do you think that it's just?
I don't think there's a reason to.
Yeah. I wonder though.
Here, I guess the question would be, why would you? And the answer is to get better feed from United.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So the reason you do that is if JFK isn't providing you sufficient O&D traffic. And I just don't feel like there's enough of that traffic to justify it, right? When that happens, they have an extra flight to Newark, not switching the flight to Newark.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. That makes sense. I wonder if anyone then will leave JFK. I mean, TAP did, right? A long time ago.
Yeah. But, I mean, TAP's not part of the ATIs, I don't think, right? So
no. That's
the other thing. Is just because you're in Star Alliance doesn't mean, like, you're best buddies with all your partner airlines there.
Hey, yeah, you got to tell Singapore. I mean.
Exactly. So, right, if you're not part of the airline, there becomes issues of how do you split fares on joint tickets and all that other stuff. That just gets real murky real quick.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wonder, like, how much do these airlines, like Turkish. I think Turkish is a great example. Turkish operates, 2 flights a day to Istanbul from JFK?
3 in the summer.
3 in the summer. They do apparently really well. That's all O&D traffic, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
And there's no reason for them to fly to Newark. In fact, I would argue that they don't get along with United just about as much as Singapore.
Yeah. Right. I mean, so why would you go to? I mean, the reason you go to Newark at that point is a slightly different catchment.
Yeah.
Right. You pick up some Central Jersey people who were they're gonna go down to Philly and fly via London or Frankfurt, I guess. I don't know, but it's I struggle to come up with a reason why people why airlines should move from JFK to Newark, or honestly vice versa.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
the only reason. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, look at the Delta operation at Newark, where they're operating the Paris and Amsterdam flights because KLM and Air France don't want to fly to Newark. They already fly to JFK.
That's a situation. Also, they use a smaller plane, but that's a situation where the ATI really works in their favor because they can be metal neutral.
Yep, exactly.
And I feel like they've done a better job of being metal neutral than Star Alliance has in terms of some of the benefits. Admittedly, they did that by just making sort of like frequent flyers credits suck across the board instead of trying to give some love at the cheapest fares. But it's I don't know. I feel like they're doing pretty well with the metal neutral. There's some better opportunities for upgrades across the alliances and the alliance on SkyTeam's side, things like that.
Yeah.
So, it's but again, that's augmenting the service to JFK.
Yeah. Yep. It's just an extra. It's a icing on the cake type thing. Like, oh, we can fly there as well with a smaller plane, grab a little bit of that New Jersey traffic, and not have to put a big jet from KLM because they don't own any small jets really.
They're finally starting to take some 787s on.
True. But I think they would rather expand than use them on a route like Newark, Amsterdam, where they're competing with United directly. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Last story, we can talk about this one quickly because it's not that interesting. It's interesting, but not that interesting. Lufthansa is actually struggling with their low-cost carrier expansion. Eurowings is the name. I was saying that they kind of bragged about the fact that they had a 96% load factor on their long-haul aircraft, and you rebutted very quickly that their on-time performance was not that great.
Yeah. I mean, we made a lot of fun of Norwegian when it was struggling to get the 787s off the ground and, start operating in the States, especially. Lufthansa's had some, or Eurowings, whatever, the Lufthansa group has had some serious troubles.
Mm-hmm.
Like 24-hour delay kinds of things going on.
Yeah, they got some passengers stranded in Cuba. I remember that.
Yeah.
Some pilots were sick, and they were bedridden. So that flight was delayed or canceled for days.
Yeah, and that's a bad place to have that happen.
And so they just not had, and they only have 2 planes, I think, doing the long haul operations right now. So they're just not doing very well as far as being.
They really only have 2 still? Jeez.
2 leased, yeah. I think they're both.
I thought they were supposed to be converting some of the old 343s to do that.
So from what I'm reading, that's taken longer than what they had originally planned, and they're not getting out there as fast. Let me see if I can find the quote. A single Airbus A330 suffered a cowl incident on a crew training flight, and then an engine failure in Cuba. And then they had dengue fever. The pilots had dengue fever over Christmas. Talk about bad luck. I'm trying to.
Yeah, well, 2 330-200s, 1 343 and 1 763 operated by TUI-Fly.
Yeah, so they're not even. Those aren't their planes. Those aren't Lufthansa planes. Those are TUI-Fly planes that are operating for Eurowings.
Yeah, wow. I really thought they were going to have moved up by this point.
Yeah. They say the situation will ease, hopefully, when they get their 3rd and 4th A330s in April and May.
Okay. Well.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, I hope so, for their sake, because, wow. I didn't realize they were that short on planes. I thought that Lufthansa was just going to en masse transfer a bunch over and be done with it.
Yeah, because, they were going to start service like Las Vegas and Boston, I think.
Was Tampa one of them?
I think Tampa was as well, and like Tehran, I think, was on the list. And I think all of that's been delayed indefinitely until they get more planes. So they're not. They're in a bad spot. They're really. It's a wonder if they're going to be able to, bounce back out of this to actually be a profitable long haul network for Lufthansa's group. Because the domestic stuff or the intra-Europe stuff is actually doing okay. It seems like they carried 1 million passengers in January. Just the intra-Europe carrier did.
Wow.
So they seem to be doing all right, but it's the long haul and that's really what Lufthansa was trying to reduce some of their costs on, was using that for these leisure routes where the feed wasn't to Frankfurt or Munich going intercontinental.
Right, they want to be able to get sort of alternate city operations.
Yeah, they want to be able to do Dusseldorf, Cologne, Hamburg, maybe to leisure markets. It's like they want to be the Spirit of long haul.
The Norwegian.
The Norwegian. Yeah, that's a good yes.
Sure. We've sort of touched on this before, but even the Emirates, right? Emirates is a massive low-cost carrier just because their costs are so low. It's not that the service is shitty.
Yeah.
But especially with those big old planes, they can get the CASM really, really cheap. Yeah.
And you actually just we're kind of changing topics here. We're watching kind of like a live stream from the Singapore Air Show, if I'm reading this right. And Bombardier is talking about Indonesia has plans for an 80 to 90 seat turboprop from RAI.
Yeah, I have no idea. I just sent that to you because have you ever seen a turboprop with winglets before?
No, that's very interesting. Very wow, that looks weird. I'm trying to figure out who actually is it. So is it an ATR? Because it has like an ATR face. But
I don't think so. I think the headline says "Watch out, ATR," which suggests that someone else is coming after him. But
too bad we're not in Singapore right now. That would have been.
Yeah, tell me about it.
So, well, I think that's a good way to wrap up the show. We should include that picture in the link to see how many people have seen an ATR with winglets. Anything else you can think of?
No, I'm good to go.
Good. I hope your ticket issues get resolved, and maybe by the next show we'll know if they've got resolved. Well, by
the next show I'll be in. Actually, when we are set to record the next show, I'll be in Bangkok. So I hope I've got something figured out by then for getting home.
I think next episode we're going to try to have a guest on, not to replace you, but to supplement you if you're around.
Yeah. Unless I'm not here, in which case we'll call it a replacement.
Yes, exactly. So no one can replace you, Seth. But well, to our listeners, you can find us on Twitter at DotsLines, on iTunes, of course, or at our website, moredotsmorelines.com. Thanks for listening, and until the next show, happy traveling.
Take care.
Bye-bye.